Third question, should the United States impose tariffs on Chinese exports? Mr. Krajewski, 2 minutes.
Tariffs have been damaging to our economy in the past, such as things like the Hawley Smoot tariff really plunged us into the Great Depression, and I think that it's dangerous to do this, particularly when China holds so much of our currency in reserve and holds so much of our foreign debt. Dealing with China is a difficult issue. Putting tariffs on it, I think, isn't the greatest thing. I think that if we tied human rights to international trade, we would have more power and leverage against the Chinese government when it comes to manufacturing. For me, I think that when we gave up human rights and fast-tracking China into the WTO, we really created a problem for ourselves, and this was a Clinton-era program, so the Democrats wear this as much as the Republicans do. And because the Republicans are the ones who spend a lot of time borrowing money from the Chinese to help fund these wars of choice and these wars of aggression in Iraq and Afghanistan. So for me, I don't think tariffs are the answer because they punish foreign countries. That, Hawley Smoot was designed to actually help American workers, but in the end it backfired. So I'm not sure that tariffs are the best answer. I would prefer, as I said, to see that we allow the same human rights that we try to preserve for American workers extended to workers across the globe. I said before that when we allow these free trade agreements, we bring down the standard of American living because we allow shoes that used to be made in Naugatuck, Connecticut for a good $10 or $15 an hour. Living wages are now made in Vietnam for 10 cents an hour. If we pinned American trade to human rights, it would force other countries to raise the standard of living over there, and then it would allow us to help make it an American rate of the standard of living here in America.
Mr. Hutchinson, 2 minutes.
The banks in China are oppressing, and the corporations in China are oppressing Chinese workers, just like the banks and the corporations are oppressing workers here. I think we should cancel, not pay back the debt owed to the Chinese private banks. I think we shouldn't pay the debt owed to the banks here. Working people have already paid for these banks several times over, and we shouldn't have to pay another cent of it. And I think that furthermore, we should put these banks and financial institutions under public ownership and workers' control. And then we can organize the workers into committees to invest, to direct investment and production towards the interests of human need instead of profit.
Ms. Brickley, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm opposed to having the tariff. I think it's going to do far more harm than good in the long run. I think it would cause some potential retaliation, and at the end of the day, leave us with more difficult challenges than we currently have.
Mr. Larson, 2 minutes.
What we need is an aggressive USTR. The United States Trade Representative has got to make sure, as I'm proud they have under this administration, and as we have on the Ways and Means Committee, to call forward in public forum the whole issue of China's manipulation of currency. Listen, we want to deal with China. It's a great market for us in the future. It's where we can send a lot of our great American-made quality goods and services. But if they manipulate the currency, and they won't accept in the goods, and they flood our markets with low-cost goods, that is not in the best interest of the American people. I'm proud to serve on a committee that has put their feet squarely in the fire. It is a delicate balance that we have to create all around the globe, but it's one where I believe that American exceptionalism has to shine through. And that means investing again in the American people. We have seen time and time again the exporting of jobs overseas. Why? Because of lower wages, because of lack of human rights, and because of lack of environmental protections. I want to close those loopholes and have voted to do so that we can reinvest that money in American people and in American jobs, providing the small businesses with the opportunity. How do I know we can do it? Because we have. We have examples right here in this district. Arcor, a company that was created because we got people in a laboratory who came up with an idea that started with 2 people, expanded to 15. Now we're going to grow to 30 and have their own building. What do? They make aerospace parts, and they make medical parts. They make it here in America because we invest in them, and that's a big difference in this election. I believe in making it here in America so that every American can make it.
Mr. Frasky, 90 seconds.
So, the Chinese problem is one that we're not going to solve overnight. Unfortunately, I can't agree with Mr. Hutchinson that we should just cancel our debt because that would lead to larger punitive measures. We no longer have the manufacturing capacity that we need in order to make it in America. We're turning massive factories into shopping malls. We're knocking down factories and we're building parking lots. We need to redevelop that manufacturing capacity that we once had. And I feel like if we did something as radical as cancel debt with China, we would become a pariah on the foreign scene. And I think one of the other things that we have to think about is because we've lost so much leverage in our Chinese trade situation because we failed to tie human rights to trade 12 years ago, I think that we can look at the invasion of Iraq in 2003 as a strategic maneuver to attempt to control oil so that the Chinese couldn't get their hands on some of that oil. They have a middle class that's the size of
If we were to cancel the debt to China, those workers there would see it as a hand of solidarity, and they would rise up and overthrow their government and institute a workers-controlled democracy, just like we need to do in this country. We need an independent movement that can take back the wealth from the wealthiest 1% and put it back into the hands of working people. Without that, we're lost, and we need to start struggling for that. And along the way, we'll win all sorts of concessions from those in power, like Mr. Larson.
Ms. Brickley, 90 seconds.
These policies that Congressman Larson is referring to have clearly failed. Unemployment is higher than ever. The stimulus spending was a complete waste of time. And the things that he's advocating for, I just have to point out once again that the National Association of Manufacturers represents the businesses that he's talking about creating jobs, is completely opposed to, as is the National Federation of Independent Businesses. These policies put the country heading in the wrong direction. The right way to solve these problems is through helping to get rid of some of the corporate bureaucracy, lowering our energy costs, not passing all these tax increases that he's voted for. Unlike Congressman Larson, I will work to help the private enterprise succeed.
Mr. Larson, 90 seconds.
I work hard every day with the private sector. I'm proud of my work with everyone in the private sector, but let me just point out a few. Let's start with United Technologies. Let's start with the $287 million for the F-22. Let's start with the bringing the ambassador of India here. The president will sign a deal for $500 million with India for the C-17 that will put Connecticut citizens in East Hartford and in Middletown, and frankly, from throughout this entire district, back to work. We're going to win the battle for the tanker come November because it's made here in America at Boeing and at Pratt & Whitney, powered by Pratt & Whitney engines. We're going to be single source on the F-35, and I know my colleagues to the left disagree with this, but these are good, paying, honest, working people who have been the arsenal for our democracy, and having a father that worked at Pratt & Whitney for 37 years, I'm proud of what we do here in America. I'm proud of our technology, and I'm proud to work day in and day out with all of our corporations because that's what produces jobs. Government's a collective experiment with both the private sector, the public sector, and the academic sector all working together. That's how we succeed.